Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Ach Gott, wie manches Hausleid. Sorry about the typo, but I didn't want to print another piece of paper just to save paper. This chorale is pretty straightforward. No real interesting deviations. There's one little tidbit I'll talk about, but it's something we've seen in the past. Something I've talked about at length in the past. Also, I uploaded a video not too long ago talking about a recent update to the channel pertaining to some misinformation that I had regarding the titling of some of my videos, so feel free to watch that video or make sure to watch it just in case you go back and reference some of the old videos. But that being said, we're going to hop right into the analysis. We're not going to tarry much longer. This is a short chorale. This will be a short video. So 3 sharps in the key signature. We start on A and we end on A. I reckon we're in the key of A major. We have a couple of passing tones in the inner voices before we get A, C sharp, E, and A. That's another A major triad. No need to reanalyze. Then we have some passing tones in the lower voices before we get C sharp, E, A, and A. That's A major in first inversion. And then we have D, A, D, and F sharp. That's D major in root position. That is a 4 chord in the key of A major, with some passing tones in the outer voices this time. And then we have F sharp, A, C sharp, and A. That's F sharp minor in root position. That's a 6 chord in the key of A major. And this is also the part of the chorale that we go to the key of E major for the first time, and for the foreseeable future, at least through the next phrase. This F sharp minor chord in root position is now our 2 chord. We have some passing tones in the lower voices before we go to D sharp, F sharp, B, and B, which is B major over D sharp. That is 5-6 in the key of B major. We have a passing 7th in the melody before we get E, G sharp, E, and G sharp. This is another one of those double root, double third voicings. It's kind of interesting, but it's our tonic triad regardless. Passing tone in the tenor, and this half cadence in the key of E major. Cadence is on B like we would expect. B, B, D sharp, and F sharp. Our 5 chord in root position. Okay, looking ahead, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E major. Starting things off in the phrase, we have another B major chord, B, B, D sharp, and F sharp. The bass is the only voice that moves up by an octave. Passing 7th in the bass before we get G sharp, B, E, and G sharp. That's E major in first inversion, which is 1-6. Neighbor tone in the bass before we get G sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and A. This G sharp is probably an accented non-chord tone, and what we're really looking at is this F sharp here, making this chord F sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and A, which is D sharp diminished in first inversion. That's 7-6, and we would expect this to go to a 1 chord in root position, E, G sharp, F sharp, and B. This F sharp is a suspension that doesn't resolve until the next beat, but still a tonic triad in root position is being implied. Interestingly enough, the enclosure, right, this F sharp and this D sharp are both enclosing this E here. This forms a chord. We have F sharp, A, D sharp, and B. So between these passing tones and this embellishment to the suspension here, because this is a 9/8 suspension in the alto, we get a B7 chord over F sharp, which is 5-4-3, a subdivision of the harmonic rhythm, before we resolve to E major in first inversion, G sharp, B, E, and E. Our tonic triad, first position, or first inversion rather. Then we have some more passing tones. We have A, we have A, we have E, and we have A, we have C sharp, we have E, and we have F sharp. That is a passing 2-6-5 chord, and as we're getting close to the cadence, 2-6-5 is a likely candidate for a chord that we would run into. So it's cool that we're seeing the harmonic rhythm divided or subdivided over the course of 2 beats here. It's interesting. Which goes to E major in second inversion, B, B, E, and G sharp, 1-6-4. A couple of escape tones here in the upper voices, F sharp and A, before we go to B, B, D sharp, and F sharp. That's B major in root position. 1-6-4 is typically accompanied by 5. Sometimes there's a chord in between, but the vast majority of the time it's just 1-6-4 to 5 because they share a bass. We have a passing 7th in the tenor here before we cadence on E major. Tonic triad. Okay, looking ahead to our next phrase, we have a half cadence in the key of A major, so we're looking for a point in which we modulate, and I'm inclined to believe that we modulate straight away. This E major chord here, E, E, G sharp, and B, I think is our 5 chord in the key of A, which resolves immediately to A on the next beat, A, E, A, and C sharp, which is our tonic triad. Passing tones in the lower voices before we get F sharp, G, C sharp, and C sharp. I think this F sharp is a non-chord tone, and we're looking at E sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and C sharp here, which is C sharp major over E sharp. That's a secondary dominant. That is 5/6 of 6, because C sharp is the dominant of F sharp, and F sharp is our submediant. And then we go to F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and A, which is our submediant. And when all the voices move at the same time, it's a pretty clear indicator that we have a subdivision of the harmonic rhythm here. We have E, D, G sharp, and B. That is a root position 5/7 chord. That's E7. And that goes to D, D natural, E, A sharp, and C sharp. Again, we have another accented non-chord tone here. It's C sharp, E, A sharp, and C sharp, which is A sharp diminished over C sharp. That's another secondary dominant, or a secondary leading tone chord. That's 7/6 of 2, because A sharp is the leading tone to B. So we would expect B minor after this. B, F sharp, B, and D, which is B minor, root position 2 chord. And this is probably maybe the most interesting tidbit. Maybe there's an argument to be made for the last phrase, but here we have 7/6 of 2 going to 2. However, when we have 2 going to a 1 chord, like we do here, C sharp, A, E, and C sharp, I'll just write that there. Typically what ends up happening is that when there's one voice moving in the 2 chord, you have to look at it and ask yourself, is it a 2 chord or is it a 7/6 chord? Because in this case, I think it's a 2 chord. I think it could also be analyzed as 7/6 because if not preceded by a dominant, typically one note going up or down in either direction, typically it's up, separates a 2 chord, which in this case would be B minor, B, D, and F sharp, from G sharp diminished over B, G sharp, B, and D. And I'm of the mindset that 7/6 is a much more likely candidate to go to 1 than a 2 chord is. So I typically just say that the F sharp is an accented non-chord tone, but in a couple of chorales, especially the recent chorales we've been looking at, the 7/6 of 2 is something that's preceded the 7 chord, or something that I would have called a 7 chord if it wasn't preceded by 2. There is the argument to be made that 2 is going to 7, which is then going to 1. I think that's a very valid argument, and something that I've strayed away from fully analyzing in my videos, or sticking to that analysis in my videos, because moving one of the voices when 3 of the voices is static doesn't really feel like a chord progression to me. Typically, I think at least 2 of the voices need to move, and that's just my relationship with harmony. When one voice moves, I feel like really what's happening here is it's an aggregate of all of the notes that are happening on the whole beat, both eighth notes included. And I think the 7 chord is what I hear, not the 2 chord, especially when it's followed by a tonic. But I think both analyses are accurate. Just it's an interesting talking point that we can at length talk about, and I'm sure this isn't the last time I'm going to talk about it, but it's interesting that we have 7/6 of 2 going to what I would typically call a 7/6 chord, but I feel compelled to call it 2 in this case because it's preceded by 7/6. Who knows? Regardless, we have 2 passing tones, one in the bass and one in the alto here. We have D, A, F sharp, and C, and I'm compelled to call this a 4/7 chord, or C sharp, not C natural, because in a half cadence, 1/6 goes to 5 in plenty of half cadences, but I feel like the fact that there is a 4/7 chord that can be deduced from this, 4 is also likely to go to 5. It's a normative progression, therefore I'm going to analyze it. And here we have E, E, G sharp, and B, which is our 5 chord, making this a half cadence. Our last cadence is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of A major. However, the last part of the chorale, really, I think there is an argument to be made that we are in the key of E major, but I ultimately don't think we are, even though it can be analyzed in the key of E major. So starting things off, we have a deceptive progression. F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and A. That's a 6 chord. That's our submediant, F sharp minor. We then have G sharp, B, E, and B. That's E major over G sharp, which is 5-6, passing 7th in the alto, before we get A, E, C sharp, and C sharp, which is our tonic triad, A major. We have some passing tones in the inner voices. That spells D sharp, F sharp, A, and C sharp. That is a D sharp minor 7 flat 5 over A, which is 7, 4, 3 of 5, because D sharp is the leading tone to E. We then have E, G sharp, E, and B, which is where we would expect that D sharp to go, but that D sharp is immediately reversed, and this is what I feel like makes the chorale feel more A major rather than E major, because if that D sharp was consistent, then I think that there would be a stronger argument, but here we have seen D sharp, or we've seen like E sharp followed by E natural, like in this case right here, and when it's reversed so quickly it feels much more secondary in function rather than primary. We have a passing 7th in the alto, that reversed D natural, going to F sharp, A, C sharp, and A. That's F sharp minor in root position, which is a 6 chord, with a passing 7th in the bass. We then get D sharp, B, F sharp, and A, which is B7 over D sharp. That's another secondary dominant. That's 5-6-5 of 5 with a passing tone in the tenor. That goes to E major, E, D, E, and G sharp. It's an interesting spelling. It's a fifthless 5-7 chord, but a 5-7 chord regardless. The fifth doesn't provide as much context as the third or the 7th or the root of the chord does, so it's often omitted. And then we get a tonic triad in root position, A, C sharp, E, and A. Now if you wanted to analyze this section in E major, I mean you could analyze as early as this 5-6 chord here. You can call this 1-6, you can call this A major 4, you can call this D sharp diminish or minor 7 flat 5 over A, 7-4-3. Make sure we do that there as well. Let me make sure I didn't forget any earlier. No, I think this was the only half diminished chord. And then we go to 1, and this F sharp chord would be 2, and then this B7 over D would be 5-6-5, and this E, and this is where I feel like it kind of goes off the rails because this is an E7 chord, so I don't know, maybe it can stop here instead of going to 5-6 of 5, but then you see how it gets kind of muddied, like even though the D sharp is here, it's like where do we modulate? This is an E7 chord. If this were D sharp, maybe, or if this was E natural, then maybe, but it happens maybe somewhere around here. Maybe that's where it stops before the D natural. But I think there are arguments to be made that this section, or at least a considerable chunk of this phrase, revisits the concept of, or the idea of E major before going back to A major, but I'm pretty certain that it's in the key of A major. Regardless though, that's my analysis for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is a pretty straightforward chorale. Due to some of the titling errors of my earlier episodes, I have to go back and reanalyze the chorales that I had neglected to analyze in numerical order because I thought I had analyzed them already. But I'm going to go back and fill in the holes, and this is the first chorale that is in my efforts to do that. So if you're interested in following me along on this journey to analyze all the chorale harmonizations, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification icon. So I upload once a day, and if you want your daily dose of Bach or your daily dose of analysis or both, you're in the right place. But that being said, thank you so much for watching the video, and thank you so much for supporting the channel by doing so. I really appreciate it. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.